You're now listening to the show about the shit in life that's just a bit too much from the perspective of stand-up comics. With our hosts, Carmelo Bongiovi and Ken Krantz. This week's topic, it's in the Rider, with our guest, Chris Johnston. This is A Bit Too Much.
I loved Game of Thrones, and I forgot everyone's name. Like by the time the season comes back, the world was too big.
I do that with same thing with everything. And also
It makes you feel dumb.
Jump into shows so infrequently that when people get into these newer shows, I'm still like, yeah, remember when Negan killed that guy and they're like, what are you talking about, man? Walking Dead, get out of here.
Yeah. That's a show that that's another one. That one just went on so fucking long.
I loved it. And yeah, I never finished it. It went on two. I was a diehard. Everybody was telling me they kept tapping out. I'm like, nah, it's still good. I'll stay.
I agree. I was like that for a while. And then I gave up after like the Rick thing, and then I just recently went back. I was like, I got to do it. I got to go finish.
I made it to like the last half season, and then I gave up at that point. Like I was almost there. Like I could see the finish line.
I've done that.
But it was exhausting.
I have no problem doing that. Like I'll pay for I'll rent a movie.
Yeah.
And it could be like a 2.5 hour movie. And at the 2 hour, 5 minute mark, I'm like, I don't even fucking care how this ends.
Tap out.
Yeah, and I'll just tap out and I won't.
I'm the opposite. I think it's almost like an OCD thing. Like I'll do this with like shows that I have 2 more seasons left. Yeah. I fucking hate this show. I used to like the show. I fucking hate it. And I will sit there and torture myself to get through it because I'm like, I've already committed this much.
I'll try to get through it. I won't, if I'm that far in, I won't. That's like raising a kid and put him up for adoption at 17 years old.
Yeah. It's a shitty kid.
It's not a horrible idea because it's a whole new set of problems at 17.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, right. It's time to go.
Yeah,
close enough.
We had a good run. We had a good run. You can find a motel somewhere.
That's cool. I'll have to tell him Severance was filmed here. This is wild looking.
Yeah. It's an old Bell Atlantic lab, right? So, they did all sorts of shit. Now
I think they discovered cellular technology here.
Yeah, and now there's a taco place with a big neon heart in it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Now there's just cancer lingering around, floating through the airs.
Yeah, we've just got residual radiation going on here. KP Burke has some fucking wild stories about like shit that happened. I think still the underground of here is like bomb bunker.
Oh, really?
Like, like a case of like, nuclear holocaust. Like you can go underneath there and be okay.
It's just lined with the walls of those old Nokia, those indestructible cell phones. That's the bunker.
That's usually where we go after each episode.
I go down there to cry about the show.
We bombed hard. This place is our safe zone.
The rest of everyone else needs to get cover while we're bombing. I think is the point.
That's why you open the shades up. They see you're in. And they're like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
No, this is a cool spot.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I wanted to talk music with you and your experience with like concerts and stuff because I worked for. It was Clear Channel Radio at the time, and then it made that switch when they made that switch to iHeart.
That was before they were the first payola because they were like SFX to Clear Channel. And they kept changing their names over and over again.
And then the subsidiaries, like the outdoor part, advertising part of it, they had all these, and then eventually they just like rolled into iHeart. That was like I was leaving at that point.
But when they were like SFX, Clear Channel, all that stuff, that was literally the payola days where it was pay to play. And if you didn't do their radio stations, they wouldn't book you for their concerts, and they owned all the billboards and everything.
They have a long history of all that kind of shit, and they're
sorry, I didn't mean to lead you down.
No, it's true because they also are the reason I think that like radio became this like templated, syndicated show thing, and like radio lost its like local flavor. Yeah, because that's what radio was always great for, which I guess is like podcasts, not this one, but like
Well, I knew a bunch of jockeys that were on that would have like shows, and then once I started to find out, they're like they would just go through their hey, Orlando, Florida, how we doing? Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I'm like, wow, they're just syndicating, and they're like, I just got to do my plugs everywhere.
Yeah, they'll sit in there and then plug them in.
And it's there was a book I read, Mollification of America, where a plan this years ago was to like what we see now. Like every Target had a this next to it, had a this next to it. So anywhere you go, you never feel like it's all cookie cutter.
And it's like depending on who the radio jock was, like sometimes it made sense. You know, like the Morning Zoo guys, you're like, okay, they like that kind of goes everywhere. It's like when you're looking for safe, family friendly radio. But then when you got like the local rock guys, it's like that feels shitty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the local rock guy should be your neighborhood. Like I see him at the remote broadcast at our fucking bar at the marina, and like, you know, think of like the Jersey Shore, what is like the Rat,
yeah,
right? Like radio, those, like that is, and that's smaller, that is local, but like was the beauty of radio for so long. We like lost that whole
totally, and I think it was in part due to the fact that they were trying to plug their events. They're like, well, we got these guys locked into all of our events, so let's plug the shit out of them
for sure.
And we don't need these guys because we just plug and play and have them announce all the locations they're at and make it seem like
and on the concert. So I got very familiar with like the concert world through like the radio promotion concerts. You know, like not necessarily the ones run by the artists and the production companies, but like those conglomerate Jingle Ball, you know, those big ones. I'm sure you've seen plenty of.
Yeah, same thing. Again, they turned plug and play. Like we always thought Jingle Ball was ours at the Garden, and you're like, wait a minute, they got them over there too, and they got one in LA.
Oh, they're all over, right?
And they start,
right.
Once it takes off and it works, they're like plug and play everywhere.
Oh, dude, they do that even with radio bits.
Yeah.
Then you know, in every city there is like a a prank phone call bit, and they call it the same thing in Florida. You know, in Key West.
I used to do freelance work where they would give you a
script,
20 topics, and then you would write however many jokes you could think of each topic and submit it, and then those jokes would go out to radio DJs all across the Midwest.
Wow.
Yeah. Like when you're listening to the local radio and the guy says something not that funny, there's a pretty good chance I wrote it.
So I just had a friend. Well, he bombed, and Ken's like, yes, another one.
And you know, it's great now. He brought that same thing here.
Yeah, he did. I was just literally, I forget who it was. Talk about forgetting characters. I was talking to somebody that was telling me they were in the entertainment industry, but they said one of their first entry level positions into the business was they were one of the people that called up and pretended they were like the cheating husband or the cheating.
I had to do that. I did that once.
Did you?
I was a voice.
And they said the radio DJs didn't know to make it seem authentic, but they were hired to call in with these.
Oh,
it's almost like on Court TV.
They knew it was fake. I think they maybe didn't get a heads up. I mean, you could be wrong about that scenario. When I did it, the DJ definitely knew they were not real.
Yeah.
But the producer created the scenario so he could react to it.
Right.
He didn't know the script or the scenario.
Right.
It was one of those like War of the Roses. It wasn't that specifically, but it was like one of those like I think mine was like so dumb. Mine was like my wife washed my like signed Patrick Ewing jersey, and then I somehow found out she was cheating. Like it was supposed to be this like snowball thing that like revealed itself. And like I kind of, and it's like no rehearsal. We're like, I'm like trying to play this character. The DJ, it's like I knew the DJ.
Yeah.
Like I worked there. Like I worked at iHeart.
He definitely knew your voice.
100%. I used to do fucking comedy shows with him at Caroline's. Like he used to produce shows and put me like I knew him, And he was like, I'm like, I mean, maybe he didn't though. Like sort of like voice in the air. People sound a little different over, whatever. But the point is, like, he's got to play to that now.
Yeah.
Right? He's got to play to my story that he knows is not real. That's
But the
like,
Patrick Ewing jersey in real life is fine, right?
Yeah, the Patrick Ewing jersey is actually...
He doesn't sign autographs.
It's actually worth more after you washed it, though. That's the problem. Is that depending
on
the year he signed it...
A lot of sweat.
You got to dunk it into the hamper. That's the problem. When you do the layup into the hamper, that's how they lost the play. That's how they lost the game. So
right.
They should have dunked it.
That's a great reference. Yeah. And then like the concert world is like a whole the radio concert world is like a whole other element to that. And I started like blowing up after a while because that's like when I left radio. It was like that was becoming this like the concerts were becoming national.
Well, it's started to get big, and Carmelo was like, "I should show myself out."
Yeah, you know what?
I don't want
to ride a wave.
If you look at the trajectory of all the things in my career, that's exactly what I've done. I'm like, I'll go the other way now that it's doing great. I go after it's dead.
When it's gone, completely
I also do that sometimes. I'm like, no one's doing this anymore. Or there's 8,000 podcasts. I want to start mine.
You're like, you know what? Let me go into print media right now.
Now's a good time to start a magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been in the concert business. I mean, I started out in, I want to say 98, 99.
Yeah.
And I got into it. I just wanted to get on the guest list of some shows out of high school. I worked out. I was a bigger kid, and it was at like the Birch Hill in Old Bridge, New Jersey, which was like a staple for concerts. Yeah. And it was like the Wild West back then. Everybody like. I wanted to get into like, I don't know, I think it was like a Seven Dust Stained Power Man 5000 show. I think Power Man was like headlining, which
didn't occur to you just to buy tickets.
Well,
that couldn't have been that hard to get into.
That was actually a big show, man, back then.
Yeah. You didn't have $24?
Yeah, that was a lot then too.
That is true.
Especially right out of high school.
Maybe they were fresh off their 90210 appearance. Remember that?
It's been a while. But I was like, talking to somebody that worked the door, a friend of mine, and they were like, yeah, we'll put you on a guest list. But they were like, but you got to do loadout. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, the problem is like all the older stagehands, like long hair, older guys that were been in it forever.
Yeah,
they get too fucked up and they can't do loadout. So literally I got there and I didn't really know what to do, but they were like, you could see them. They were like it was like a
sure. I know exactly what you mean. There's a
tapped out, drunk, couldn't do loadout, and I tap in and I just help push gear out and. That's how I got in.
Yeah, these are like they're stagehands or like either the venues like union people or the like
well, back then,
the
there was no
roadies.
Union.
Back then it was just like you're doing like the
independent
roadies.
promoter. They were just. I always say you pick it from the top of the bottom of the litter. You try to fucking just fill in whoever is a breathing body that can potentially push and fill.
But they all look like okay. You wanted to be a musician. Like they all look like long curly hair and like a lot of these guys look like they were or they just look like blue collar guys too. Like you have two types.
Well, there's a
and
couple
they're all
different.
it's hard work, man. That shit building a stage and fucking rigging lights is hard work.
So there's the disgruntled ex musicians, or there's just like the teachers looking to fill in a little bit of extra work.
Sure.
They're like, you can't call them all the time, but you try to hit them up, and then they're like, yeah, I'll do it. To make
just get a
bucks.
body to put some shit up, move some shit around.
So that was pretty much me. I got involved, so I've been involved, there, and then I didn't get fucked up, and I not terribly, and I had a good head on my shoulders, I guess. So I moved up in ranks pretty quickly, became a stage manager, then a production manager, and then moved over to other venues. And at that time, nothing was corporate, so it was like Asbury wasn't Live Nation, one other one wasn't AEG, like it was just one big, everybody worked together, and we did some huge festivals on like the beaches of Asbury Park. We used to do Warped Tours there, we used to do all this stuff, and you make your rounds, you network, and you just have a good head on your shoulder.
They're great shows, man. Like those feel like, even if it's a huge act, feels like this is a show in my town, right? This is the Asbury show. This is Live Nation didn't make tickets fucking on like $1,000 yet, not for a long time.
Yeah, we did the Bamboozles before they were actually the Bamboozles. They were like a hippie fest and stuff like that in the parking lots of the Asbury Park, the Stone Pony. And like it was literally so renegade. We couldn't get power. Nobody brought a generator for one of the outdoor stages, so we had a guy that was an electrician, and he like busted open and tapped into a light pole power on the boardwalk of Asbury Park once, and that's how we kind of did it. Just it was renegade style until everything became more corporate.
It's so funny because I feel like the story, like those stories, are like so many people fell into it just because they loved.
Well, that's kind of
like
what
that's a
happened to me.
career started for people who just wanted to go to shows.
I just wanted to go to shows. I played drums, but I wasn't good. I couldn't separate limbs. Like I was just all one beat.
I could do one thing.
Yeah, I could do one beat.
I could do like Bam Bam.
Mash the shit out of Bam Bam. Pow!
Yeah, I can't do the.
No, I couldn't do that. But I jammed with my brother, and he got really good at guitar, and then I still wanted to be involved in it. And around the same time, I was doing comedy. 1999 was the first time I ever got up and did an open mic.
Yeah.
And still wanted to be involved in entertainment, but I loved music at the time, so I got involved in it.
I'm not. I don't want to be a rock star. I want to be a comic.
Yeah.
Very different.
Well, I realized I'm like, the rock stars are going to work. I think I could hold a microphone.
Yeah.
They're so intertwined, though. Like every musician's a frustrated comic. Every comic's like if
every comic wants to be a rock star.
If I had any musical talent, that's where I would have gone.
Well, that's why you got guys like the goddamn Comedy Jam, where you get comics that get to go out and like wail out pretty terribly their favorite songs and be a rock star for a jam. A real band behind them, and they're like, "That's the greatest fucking thing in the world."
That's a fantasy for a comic, is like, to get to walk out to the. Here's the only reason why I want to be a musician is that when I bomb in music, there's sound to cover the silence.
Yeah, I've seen that plenty of times.
Bad shows. I watched fucking Stone Temple Pilots, Scott Weiland.
Yeah,
just fucking lose his shit at Jones Beach on stage, like wrile on the floor and like almost pain.
Yeah,
I saw him I saw Stone Temple Pilots right here in Homedale when it was the Garden State Arts Center, and a lot of people don't know the brothers from Stone Temple Pilots are from Seaside, right?
Oh,
Point
really?
Pleasant.
They're from Point Pleasant.
They're from the Jersey Shore, so this was their big homecoming show. And I guess Weiland was like, well, I'm not going to let this go easy for you.
Yeah.
And he would not come out. And it was, I forget whoever opened.
He's
and
wild,
then you were just waiting and waiting.
Yeah.
And finally, after like 40 minutes, they sent out, because it was sponsored by like K-Rock or something. And they sent Opie and Anthony out. It's when they were still on K-Rock. They must have been like, just go entertain the crowd.
Yeah.
And they sent them out and they opened their mouths to say something and people just started booing and hucking shit
they
at
weren't
the
there
stage.
for that. Yeah,
They were not there to see Opie and Anthony. Those two, they were like, like they turned right around and went backstage.
As they should, yeah.
But they like, no wonder that band couldn't last.
I watched him have like he was doing like a vocal solo, but it was like noises.
Yeah.
And at first you're like, okay, he's like, because he was doing this like oversexed thing, but then it became like screeching, and then he like I mean, this went on, I swear to you, it felt like 25 minutes.
Yeah. And
then he's laying there and the thing's down. I'm like, oh, I just watched him die. And then he just popped up and played Plush. Like he just fucking, but he like definitely zoned the fuck out.
he's good. I've worked with him a handful of times. I don't recall that I've ever worked with him not under some sort of influence or something.
Right.
I think he was an incredible showman when he was at it. When he was at his tops.
Yeah.
Nobody was. He's doing these weird moves, and he controlled the crowd. He controlled the show.
I definitely saw him like 10 years past prime,
I also worked with him
like a comeback tour
too. I've worked with him with Stone Temple Pilots in their prime. I worked with him with Velvet Revolver.
Yeah.
I worked with him on his solo stuff. One of the last ones was not too long before he passed away, and I remember we were at a venue in Long Island. We were covering the show, and I was working with him as just a production manager on the show. And he's in there and he's singing the songs, and then in between each song he's telling these stories that lead to nowhere. And these Long Island dudes, I just start yelling, "Shut the fuck up and sing the song!"
Yeah.
and he was like, "Oh man."
Listen, my arch nemesis in life is a Long Island crowd.
Yeah.
For comedy at least. That is like where I get into I get into altercations.
Yeah.
I get into fight. Like that. It's Long Island crowds. They are there they paid to see a show.
Yeah.
They don't, and they're angry about it. They come in angry about it, so he starts fucking going off with these tangents. It's like, what the fuck, man?
Oh my god, he's not even tangent. He's like,
it's like, I'm a longshoreman. I'm fucking tired of my backyard. Sick your goddamn fucking time.
Yeah.
Like that's an angry, like a long Staten Island and Long Island are the angry Islanders.
Staten Island is rough because I feel like
that's different.
Nobody wants to be there, even Staten Islanders, and nobody's willing to accept them. Like Long Island, at least they're proud of their own thing. It's like a Jersey pride thing, whereas Staten Island, they're like, hey, we're part of New York. And New York's like, nah, you're not. And then New York's like, we're part of Jersey. And they're like, nah.
We pushed you this much and you touched Bayonne. You're New Jersey.
Yeah.
Staten Island is
they've got a chip on their shoulder in Staten Island because they don't feel the love. But you know what's weird about that is in Staten Island, it's like they don't want to be there, but they have such... Maybe it's projecting, but they have such pride for Staten Island.
They have such big personalities and pride, but I think if they get a chance to jump off the island, they're like, fuck you guys, I'm out. Yeah. Like, I've had some of the weirdest shows I've ever had. Comedy-wise, when you say Long Island, I've had fun in Long Island. Staten Island, I did a show at like... I don't even know where it was. It was like a restaurant bar, and as I'm going up, they're making like Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett style drinks with like frozen machine. And I'm like, guys, this is the loudest beverage I've ever heard. Do you have any beverage that includes
ice? Yeah.
Ice. Sure. You mix it like you do margarita, frozen margaritas. You got any drink that involves like a dump truck backing up or something?
Also,
don't
get these people that drunk.
No, that's true.
Right?
Too,
also give watered down some fucking vodka sodas because they're wild already.
The whole room smells like the hottest cologne. for the day.
You ever been in a show and they like at a club and someone orders fajitas and you're like, how is this even on the menu?
It's coming out sizzling.
Yeah, you're looking around, you hear a silence, and you're like, is the heat on? Oh, that's this guy's sizzling plate.
This guy's dinner is louder than
And
me.
also, fajita would be a Staten Island dude's like Mexican food. And he's like, I fucking love Mexicans.
Oh, shit, you got a napkin? I dipped my chains in my fajita.
Falls in the hot plate, burns him.
It melted my fake gold. But back to Scott Weiland. I've seen him kill, but while he was telling these stories,
performer, but wild, just like out of his mind.
People were like yelling at him, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm just trying to tell you guys a story." And all right, fine, I'll sing the next song. And he was almost like like disappointed and submissive at the same time. He
they were probably into the music. Like I could see him like playing Vaseline, and the place goes nuts.
But it wasn't.
And then he's like, "Want to hear how I wrote that song?" And everyone's like, "No, fuck you."
Yeah. Even if he said that, I think he was going off talking about like I don't even.
It probably wasn't a relevant
things that
story.
made no sense.
I think crowds like that shit.
Yeah.
When you know what I mean? When they do the like when I was still working in the radio, it was like when Billy Joel started doing all these he did that like Last Play at Shea, but he was also doing these like smaller things, like these like sort of intimate, like people paid like $1,000 to be there to watch him in like a BB King, one of those places, and people fucking eat. Granted, a Billy Joel fan probably super into like songwriting. That's a little bit of a different.
No, I've seen him done well. Paul McCartney tells stories about going to see Jimi Hendrix, and Jimi Hendrix learned their whole album.
But he makes the story succinct on stage. Yeah. He's not sitting there for 20 minutes going, where were we? Where were we?
No, he's got a point to it.
Here's where we wrote this, and he tells a 30 to maybe a minute and a half long story, and it's interesting.
Yeah, it
adds value and texture to the show, and you're like, well, I just heard something fucking cool I would have never heard just listening to that music. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then there's just this wild shit with doing concerts. I right before I left iHeart, when they were like making that switch over to iHeart, there was this big festival they threw in Vegas. It was like their big like kickoff, like we're gonna become iHeart Radio. So this was like a one of those shows, like one of the Jingle Bell, but there's like a nationally pushed thing, right? iHeart Festival, radio festival, whatever. And so it's like 2 nights, and there's the whole show's headliners. Right. This is not like a bunch of opening act, like Aerosmith was in the middle.
Yeah.
And so Aerosmith is on, or maybe mine was just Steven Tyler. I'm not sure. I think it was a little bit of his own thing. Anyway, he's on stage, and the way the stage is set up, for those big things, they have like sponsors and shit.
Yeah.
There's 2 side platforms that extend out that are attached to the stage. So you got these people like clients. So one stage is programming, one stage is sponsors, right? So one stage is meant for artists, friends and family, and like one platform that's attached to the stage, and the other one's for like whoever Verizon, whoever's sponsoring it, like have all their people there, right? Like VIP type thing. I'm on the stage. I'm like working the stage of the advertisers. Someone comes up to me and comes with this chick who's just like, she just looked like an old rock groupie chick, right? Older, super attractive, but like older, like they come up on the stage and like, hey, can she stay here? She's here for Steven. And I was like, oh, there's the other stage. I was like, and they're like, oh, no, his wife's there. Yeah. She has to stay here. So we had to like
separate them.
But also, that is the most like crazy
like the
ass
Moses
rock
of hoes.
star.
You got to keep them separated.
Right. He was parting the Red
like
Sea.
When Greg Brady was bouncing between the 2 Halloween dates. He had to change his costume before.
It's like stovetop stuffing commercial where
like
you eat 2 dinners
and one in the family room.
Yeah. How wild is that though? The audacity of a rock star to be like, my wife, by the way, who couldn't know she was there. So like, it's not like he was like in this open thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to have all my, right? Because that could happen too.
Yeah.
But like, his wife couldn't know. She's there.
Yeah.
This one's there. That is the like most like crazy ass rock star thing you could think of, right?
I tell you what,
that's what a rock star would do. It's like,
it's rock star, but it's also you have a lot of faith in your team to make sure that they don't fuck that situation up. Like you got half of your net worth stake in that right there, because
maybe just have a guy on the payroll for that.
Yeah,
to
that's
make
your
sure.
guy.
Yeah,
that's your wife blocker.
Yeah, that guy who brought her to us probably was that guy.
That
like,
probably
was
was,
his guy. And I was like, oh no, you could go on that stage. He's like, no. Dude, and then he came out to me, he's like, this is his girlfriend, his wife's on that stage. And I was like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
Because I only know about regular people who've cheated, who like have lives in different towns, right? They don't bring them to, that's crazy to me. It's like, you have faith in your team.
Yeah.
You also don't give a fuck, really.
No,
Because it's not like you're away when you're asleep. Like, you're there. Your wife is there.
That's rock star shit. You don't work at like FedEx and then your wife shows up at work, but you bring your girlfriend to work and she's like, you're like, hey,
they're not
all
both
right,
at the
that
Christmas
side
You
is
stay in
party.
inventory. You stay in shipping.
No, that's only rock star. Only a Steven Tyler. I mean, I guess some level pulls it off, but that's also old school. I guess it's hard to pull stuff like that off. I would imagine now.
I remember telling my wife this story, and then one day there was like a 60 Minutes or one of those like old interview shows, and they had him and his wife on, and he talked about how he's been faithful to her for their entire lives together, and all this stuff. Like it was a whole interview about how faithful he is, and I was like,
That's hilarious.
But
and then your wife is like, I'm going to that show in Long Island.
Yeah, she's like, he is always loyal to me. As long as I don't look left, I won't have to see any. Just wild shit, man.
Well, even like nowadays, like the Dave Grohl thing, like finding that out, he's got like a kid with, like a love child, and you're like, no, like there's certain people you want to root for. You're like, no, that's got rock and roll's dad right now. We can't have that
exactly.
happen.
Yeah. There's certain people who you expect it from, or it wouldn't surprise you at least. It wouldn't surprise you.
It didn't surprise me with Dave Grohl.
It didn't surprise me, but it also
want him to
was
not
like
be
you
that
wanted
guy.
it to be like, no, not you too.
You know what it is? Because he's a little goofy, I think. So he comes off like you don't really expect him to be completely like that.
No, you want him to feel like,
Dude's still a rock star, you know?
of course.
No,
He's got her back. I mean, the wife came back.
Yeah.
She's like, all right. She literally, I think I was reading something that said he gave her carte blanche on all his credit cards. She could do whatever she wants now, and that's
what you got to do.
It's still cheaper, I'm sure.
yeah. They just give her half.
Yeah, sure. With that net worth, I mean, but that's what you got to do after that. You're
It's funny
okay,
because
spend all my money.
She said, "Well, we're back together. I know he's remorseful and feels bad for what he did, but then you're also like, wait a minute, he's remorseful, but he also has a love child. Like this love child is a remorseful child. Like, come on, man, you got like that's a fucked up situation for this kid that just out there.
That's like your
lingering
kid's
in
new
the
sibling.
twilight zone of love. Yeah, of
Wait,
rock
they
and
said
roll
his
and love.
kid was remorseful?
No, he's remorseful
He's
having
remorseful
the kid.
about having the kid.
So then there's this kid
It's a
that's
horrible thing to say.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
When your kid gets old enough to watch that, it's like, I really fucked up by having this kid.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to be like, my dad is, but you gotta like,
Maybe his kid's gonna have that same oomph in him now to start like Nirvana too. Maybe he'll lunge back at him and he'll write some hurtful songs that who knows.
Right.
Maybe that's what it needs.
There might be some pain.
Yeah, maybe some pain will help him.
Enough genetic talent and pain to
Like his
create another
dad
artist.
the boy named Sue. His dad fucking
all that shit. Like that whole world of like when you get an inside look to like even just like. This is a silly thing, but like the riders that artists have, you know what I mean? You look at this like
I got into it with a lazy tour manager recently that copped out on. The biggest pet peeve in my industry is when they go, it's in the rider, and it's like no, fucking. If you want something, if you want it done correctly, do your work, do your due diligence.
Reach out, ask,
call me, reach out, bold, red, something, highlight something that is a necessity that you want. Because for the most part, these 30-page writers are just boilerplate bullshit, sticker price stuff.
You want me to find the gem in there.
75% of it is not applicable to each event. Also, the contracts that the venue sends back are usually redlined, crossed out, and then there's a middle ground of something that nobody looks at. Also, I send out venue riders and tech specs that is funny because the guy I was getting into it a little bit was telling me something was on the rider, and I'm like, here, I printed out every single page. I combed through it 5 times. It is not in here. And then he goes, well, it's supposed to be in there. And I'm like, well, you're giving me shit on something that's supposed to be in there. Also, the paperwork I sent you specifically says no gaff tape on the painted walls. Yet you're hanging shit up with gaff tape. I can give you painters, like little things like that. You're like, come on, dude, this is a 2-way street. Have accountability, have respect, do your fucking job, and get what your band wants. Don't rely on the scapegoat of it's in the rider. Fuck you.
I'm gonna start using it's supposed to be in there with my wife.
I
was supposed to tell you about that.
The dinner's not hot, honey. It was in the rider. Imagine if you gave your wife a rider.
I can't give my wife polite direction.
9
I
p.m.
can't
is-
hand her a rider.
Have them spread 9 p.m.
My
is
wife
loaded.
gives me a rider.
Yeah.
I know her. I've memorized her rider.
So for those who don't know, just to reiterate and circle this back, they could edit it and wrangle this thing in.
Sure.
The rider is like
editor's
something
lazy,
that gets sent out to the venues from the artist. It's like the list of demands / requests / wish list of items.
Van Halen's the one that really started. Like they put
Made
in
it
their
like
writer early on. They wanted, in addition to however much whiskey and whatever alcohol, candy, M&Ms. But no brown M&Ms.
They're the ones who did that?
There
They're
was
the
them
ones
that
that
said no
started.
green M&Ms.
No green M&Ms.
Yeah.
And what they were doing, not that they
Which,
gave a shit.
by the why?
Because
He'll tell you. I know exactly
they
why.
want, and this is probably because this goes back to what you
Yeah.
were just saying. They wanted to see who's reading this
Yeah.
fucking thing. They wanted to make sure that you paid
That's what that's
attention.
about.
Because if you fucked that up, you probably fucked up some of the
100%.
big
because
shit.
Skittles
the
have
green
their own
M&Ms,
flavors. M&Ms do not. That's food dye. So it's like, why would you not want to agree with that?
He's
That
100%
makes sense.
correct. The green M&Ms were the litmus test to see
Right.
if you looked at everything.
So if they
You're
walked
reading
in and saw green M&Ms, they
Yeah.
were like, well, they probably didn't get much of this right, which I could see the value of, all right, let's test them and see. But then, like, if they didn't have green M&Ms, they would, like, destroy backstage.
I'm gonna start doing this.
Well,
again.
yeah.
I'm
It's
gonna
like,
start
well,
doing-
that's maybe a little much.
I'm gonna start doing. I'm gonna start
know-
doing this again because I know he doesn't read my emails.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just start ending my emails with like, make sure you bring a dildo for this.
Bring a dildo.
Yeah, for this recording and see.
He's like, oh, just for this one? No, but that's funny. It'd be a funny sketch if they did like a Family Guy sketch where they had the green M&Ms and the guy's like, we read through the whole thing. They're going to be so happy. Let's put it here. And then the janitor turns the heat on and all the candy shell green melts off the M&Ms and it's just brown chocolate. And they walk in,
Yeah.
they're like, motherfuckers didn't read.
Well,
That would be a good sketch, Family Guy. Seth,
You know
if
what's
you're watching.
wild too? I feel like the artists do it sometimes, but I feel like a lot of times it's really just the management, and it's not like I remember. I think I want to say it was like a Pitbull or one of those guys that were like big in the like early 2000s.
Mr. 305.
Yeah, one of those. It was one of those like big radio, like his has like 76 songs on the radio at once, guys. You know, I want to say it was Pitbull, and there was like thousands of dollars of sushi that were required.
Yeah.
First of all, you're getting a giant sushi platter backstage. It sounds like you're gonna.
Yeah,
fucking
by the
shit
time
your
the
pants.
show's over, it's gross.
And it was not touched. Now, was it not touched because it was gross? And he was like, ew. Or like, they didn't keep it on ice because it's just some fucking radio person running it in there or something? Or was it like, I feel like sometimes the managers are like, just want to see the fucking everyone bend over backwards for their artists.
Yeah, for sure there's a lot of that. Sometimes I think the people they bring on the road with them are a direct relation to them. They're an extended hand of the artist because a lot of times you know you work with the artist and you're like, oh, all right, and then you work with their management and the management's like, I just have to do what this person makes me do, man. I'm sorry, but then a lot of times it is the other way around too.
I have found it the other way in my more limited experience. I've seen many times where if you talk to the artist, they actually were pretty cool, but the management made you feel like they were a monster.
I've seen
because
both.
their demands. I'm sure it's both ways.
So
you know,
a
rock
good
stars are
manager
rock
or a
stars,
good
but-
tour manager will also look at the deals because a lot of times they ask for these crazy things and maybe it's different now than it was then, but the artist usually gets a guaranteed amount of money versus a percentage of the net after all expenses are taken into consideration, with hospitality, catering, all that stuff being one of the expenses. So if you're smart about it and you don't need all this bullshit sushi that you're going to throw away, you sold out the show, you're going to get 85-90% of the net earnings anyway. So you want to try and slash
why would you
all the
wanna up
expenses
the hard
because now
costs
you
of
just
that?
wasted money that 85 to 90% of it's coming out of your back end anyway.
Right.
So
Right, but I guess there's an element to being a manager, probably of giant musicians.
well, a lot of it's just
There's
big dick
gotta-
swinging.
Yeah. There's got to be an element of maybe it's like you're always trying to make that artist see you as like someone who goes out of their way for them.
1000%.
Or maybe it's it's like an angry doorman in a building who just likes to exercise his power and tell you not to take the other. Like, there's an element of just, I have some power here. I'm going to exercise it because I'm just a shit person.
Well, it's also
And I
their
like
way,
exercising power.
they're a way of confirming that they have done something for. I've seen that plenty of times too, where they're like, hey, but look what I did for you, and it's like, yeah, but this is something we do for everybody. Shh, look at what I did for you to make sure that they put their fingerprints on it and show the artist that they put their fingerprints on it, so that they continue to get their
Yeah, it's not even really
percentage.
their doing.
No, not at all.
That happen, that'll happen in like creative rooms too. Sometimes somebody's like comes in, especially like a more like executive level person, and they're like they don't have anything to really contribute to the project, and they'll just go like, you know what we can do, and then like they added a comma somewhere. They're like, see, I helped rewrite the fucking thing, and you're like, stop, you did it. But people, people like to feel valuable, I guess, and want to be, and they're not happy. They don't normally. I feel like that kind of person doesn't feel valuable, so they are.
Well, I don't even know if they care about feeling valuable. They want them to know that they're valuable, so that they continue to receive their percentage.
They got to look it.
They got to look it. They got to show that they did something.
Yeah,
I got you this.
Isn't that usually pretty transparent though? Like I feel like people do.
You would think so, but
I think you probably. It doesn't mean you're gonna fire or keep the person based on that, but like I think a lot of times you got to be like, yeah, I know, sure, yeah, okay.
But also, I feel like a lot of these artists are just spread so thin, doing interviews, doing this, doing that, doing the shows.
They don't care
that they just have a short span of attention that they can even pay to seeing how authentic.
Yeah, you think Scott Weiland was like, hey, this feels transparent.
Wait a minute, I feel like we could have had that already, not because of you. Scott, I mean, yeah, he was shot out there a lot of times. Scott, full circle. But one of the first times we did Velvet Revolver, I was back. I'm infamous for we print up like day sheets or something, or sheets with the artist's name, the schedule of times, dressing room stuff, and I think we did one of the second shows that Velvet Revolver ever did, and it was everybody from Guns N' Roses, obviously, and then Scott Weiland singing. And I remember Slash walking in, and we're like, hey, we're walking him in, and the first time he sees it, he looks over, and I spelled the name wrong. I put Velvet Rev Lover instead of Velvet Revolver, and he just went, man, second show, they spelled their name wrong already, and I'm just like, look into that. I'll talk to somebody.
Someone's getting fired.
But he's a sweetheart, man. He is one of the nicest rock stars on the planet. Sweetheart. Yeah. What a good dude to be a rock star at that level.
Well, that dude grew up in it, though.
He grew up in it. Yeah. I mean, him, Duff, all those guys, I think like started to come up together. There's like inserts of their books where like they lived in a storage unit together and they were like hooking up with chicks crazy? At the same time.
His mom was on the Jeffersons and you're living in a storage unit. His mom was on the Jeffersons and dating David Bowie.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But you'd expect that person to not be a good person.
Because you would, especially being around somebody that's such a loose cannon and Scott or Axl at the times, you know. But he was cool. Duff was great.
People who come up in those things, or been exposed to money and fame at an early age. Usually, those are not good people.
No, they were great. They were a great experience. Duff was real big into Muay Thai at the time, and this was years ago when Velvet first came out. You have to look up what year that was. I was doing like Muay Thai shoot fighting, like grappling before MMA was big.
Yeah.
And I was showing him something. He was like, oh, cool. He's tall, lanky. He's like built for Muay Thai. And he was like, let me show you something. And he like put his knee in my back, put me in a rear naked choke. His flip-flop shot across the room. Security came running. They're like, what's going on? And they're like, dude, he's getting into a fight with Duff. And I'm like, no, we're just and he was just showing me this move where like a rear naked choke, if you put your knee in the back and pull him back, you could choke somebody out easier. And then he was just cool. We were just like,
imagine getting choked out by someone in flip-flops.
Dude, his flip-flop shot across the room. And he was choking me. I'm like, oh, security.
I'd have to take the rest of the day off.
Fights in Long Island. Someone in flip-flops and a shitty Islander hat might choke you out. That might happen, dude. Dude, there's nothing worse than getting choked, by the way. So I interned for Opie and Anthony many, many years ago, right? And obviously, many years ago. And they have this guy.
He's going back. He's doing to do it now.
Yeah. But guys, there was this guy that's like head of security there at the time. His name was Master Po. He was this like martial arts guy that was like their security guy. I think he worked for XM though.
Okay.
I don't think he worked for them, but he was he was there. And one day, I think I knocked over like a chess game that was like an ongoing chess game between him and Norton. It was like off. It was outside of the studio, and like they would just play chess between breaks and stuff. And I was carrying shit around. I'm moving things around. I'm working, and I knocked over the whole chessboard.
Oh no!
And this is like holy shit, because those guys, sometimes they would bring interns on, and it was like mortifying.
He was probably like, "That was my chess game for 30 years."
Yeah. So this guy, he wasn't even Asian. He wasn't even Asian, but I love.
He wasn't Asian,
but he sounded
for
like
30 years.
And so the dude,
He's from Long Island.
Oh,
They were like,
this
"What are
intern
these?"
go too far.
he's like a white dude from New Brunswick, you know. But he, they were like, "Who knocked over the?" And it became like a little spectacle on air. And they're like, "Who did it?" And he fucking put me in like a chokehold and dragged me in to like I think he was doing it to be funny. But it is one of the scariest. You know, I'm a 19-year-old. I don't have zero martial arts.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get out of a chokehold. Anything you do to get out of it makes you choke more. You know?
Oh, like a finger trap? I didn't know that.
It's exactly what it's like. That's another Asian
That's how you
joke,
get
by
out.
the
You
way.
got to finger him. That's how you get out.
If you finger me in the
you
ass and
finger
mouth
him,
at the
they'll let
same time,
yeah.
I will retract. And that'd be a hell of an MMA move. He brings me in, and I just remember like, and I know he's not going to hurt me.
That would bring a whole new dynamic of people to watch MMA. They'd be like, "It's MMA time."
Just
Sorry,
there's
two.
Oh no, he's
I've
pulling out the
offended two
Chinese
groups
finger
already.
trap. Joe Rogan just screaming, "It's a Chinese finger trap!" He's fighting it. He's pulling back harder both ways.
I would be so bad at MMA, by the way. Like, I would tap out the second the guy's dick was near me.
Yeah.
Like, the minute
right?
I felt his dick on my leg, I would be like, I'm out. I'm done.
Well,
Yeah,
be careful
that's
where
the
you-
only reason why you'd be bad at MMA, because you don't want someone's dick on you.
Yeah. I think that's the only thing holding me back.
You scared to fight? No, I'm homophobic. Yeah.
Well, dude, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, wish you all the success and continued success and everything. Thanks for coming on. Do you have anything to plug? This is probably gonna be like late May, or just plug your socials, whatever.
Yeah, if you want, just everything is at Chris J Comedy. I think TikTok is like Real Chris J Comedy or something. I don't ever go on TikTok. Pretty much Instagram and Facebook and stuff. So Chris J Comedy, give me a follow. Come out to a show. Support these guys. They're crushing it. And thanks for having me.
All right, you douche canoes.
Fucking douche canoes.
This is a bit too much. Bit too much podcast and all the socials. Check us out. Like, subscribe, all the shit.